people driving in a car is always a net negative on our society based on the impact on our roads, the cost of maintenance for gas and emissions. When we have someone walking and cycling, they're lower impact on our infrastructure. So they're also healthier, and so they take less sick days. This is about making our lives better. And whether you consider yourself a conservative or progressive, wherever you sit on the political spectrum, that's what we want.
Do you think that the women leaders then in that position who are at the helm of this behavior change, do they face more backlash as their male counterparts? Are they easier targets just because they're women?
The level of scrutiny and the level of backlash and the toxicity of it is harsher for women. I wish I could understand the psychology behind it, but it always goes beyond just the decisions themselves, and it becomes very personal in terms of attacks against women. And so nearly all of the women that we spoke to for Women Changing Cities described having to have police escorts at various times because they were receiving really vitriolic, toxic messages from random people, anonymous people.
Now I've seen this campaign in London talking about women carriages on the underground. Are we moving backwards?
It's not a step in the right direction because it actually takes the responsibility away from the people that should be stopping it from happening, from the men that shouldn't be doing it in the first place, and then puts the onus back. It's again putting the onus back on women to be responsible for their own safety. We need to be looking at the larger picture, and it's such a big challenge. But I think the more that while we create these temporary feelings of security, we ignore the bigger problem, and then the problem just gets worse.
Hello, welcome to Talking Place, the podcast bringing placemakers and storytellers together to talk about place. I'm your host, Tanisha Raffiuddin. I am the founder of Concept Culture, a creative agency in London, passionate about creating purposeful brands and telling powerful stories. In this episode, I talk place with Melissa Bruntlett. Melissa Bruntlett is the director of Moda City Creative and a leader in advocacy and strategic advice for better walking, cycling, and public spaces. We talk about her latest groundbreaking book, Women Changing Cities, the real cost of women in urban leadership, and the global examples showing what people-first mobility can look like when done right. From gender-responsive design to the underfunding of community engagement, this is an honest conversation about who our cities are built for and the women leaders quietly proving it can be done differently. All right, let's talk place.
Melissa, welcome to the Talking Place podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for taking time out of your busy book tour. I understand you're traveling the world promoting your new book.
Yeah, I was in Brussels yesterday, London today, and then we're on a plane tomorrow to Shanghai. So
amazing. And I'm sure we'll get into it. But let's start with getting to know you a little bit more and tell us about your journey so far and how you came to become a mobility expert.
Yeah, it's not a straightforward path. I don't think anyone's anymore is. But yeah, I grew up in suburbia, had a pretty typical Canadian suburbs lifestyle, went to Toronto for school and studied fashion design. So definitely not in this world. But there was always this thing, we traveled to Europe and I loved all the walkability and being able to be in the old centers. We chose to live in a smaller town in Ontario after graduation, close to the city center, and I walked everywhere or cycled. But then I think it was really when we ended up in Vancouver after 2007 that this all sort of began. At the time, they elected a mayor and council that were very pro-cycling. They really wanted to create a safer environment. There were a lot of people that were already cycling, but they were sort of like the riding with the bulls kind of mammal environment and not necessarily something for everyone. And they definitely want to change that. And so us as a young family around 2010 decided to sell our family car because we were both working in the city center. It was economically more viable living in an expensive city like Vancouver and moving around on foot and bicycle and public transportation with our kids who were 1 and 3 at that time. And that sort of suddenly, something I'd been doing my whole life. I've been cycling since I was 5, just around my neighborhood or to see friends. We were a 1-car household, so it was just normal. But then suddenly seeing the world through our kids' eyes, cycling with them in a trailer, on a trailer bike. For those that maybe have never heard of them, it's these bikes you attach to the back of your bike, so they're kind of cycling with you.
Yes, they're so cute. Yes.
Yeah, and we'd have these amazing conversations with them. We'd see the city in a completely different way. And we sort of had this moment of like, there's something to this. So for me, I started sharing my own story as a part-time working mom, just try like what it was like to move around with the kids. Chris, my husband, did join a group working on Cycle Chic Vancouver. And yeah, it just sort of snowballed from there. What I was sharing resonated with people, this idea of the social connection that comes from cycling, the better connection to nature, living in a city like Vancouver in Canada. And then, just taking it step on step from there, working in a consultancy, writing 3 books, eventually moving to the Netherlands. I'm summing up a lifetime in literally a lifetime. My kids are now adults.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But just this whole journey has all been about, just sharing what I was experiencing, in the hopes to inspire other people to see what was possible. And then, lucky enough to make a career out of it.
Yeah, no, amazing. That is so inspirational. Because this podcast is called Talking Place. And I love asking every guest the same question because I get a very different answer every time. What does place mean to you?
Yeah, I think for me, a place is, it's somewhere where you feel connected to your community, wherever that community might be, whatever it looks like, where, you can go out and see familiar faces, visit familiar shops, and just feel this connection. And so, for me, that's always what place has meant is just somewhere where I feel like I'm a part of something as opposed to some anonymous figure moving through space.
Yeah. And I think we're increasingly becoming aware of the connectivity that good places offer us with our place, with our history, our heritage, and the people around us. And what's your favorite place in the world?
I mean, the easy answer is Delft, because that's where we chose to settle in the Netherlands. But I mean, I think from a city or life perspective, it definitely is Delft, because it's this perfect encapsulation of a walkable, connected, bikeable space that you can leave fairly easily and with the trains and what have you. But I never really feel disconnected there. But then on the flip side, I'm just going to plug a natural space that is, I haven't been since we moved from Vancouver. But on the west coast of Vancouver Island is Tofino. Which is this beautiful coastal town. You're so immersed in nature. So it's just this like these two dichotomies, I guess, of like, the dense urban Dutch city or a small urban Dutch city, and then the rural connection. But those two places to me are my favorites.
Oh, wonderful. I mean, I have been to Delft and on a day trip from Rotterdam, and obviously my fascination with the blue and white porcelain tiles, it was just peaked. And I remember buying a couple of things, Christmas ornaments and all the little knickknacks, the blue and white tiles, and obviously in the Netherlands, the Canal City. Just again, you talked about biking, and you feel like that there is a community, like, and even as a visitor, as a tourist, you can immerse yourself in that community and you just become a fabric of that community. I think it's down to that connection that we've also talked about, the scale of the buildings and all these like gingerbread houses and stuff like that. Very, very romantic place. Tofino I haven't been to, but I cannot tell you the number of people, Canadians, who are like, oh, when I travel to Canada a lot because my younger sister lives there. And they're like, you have to go to Vancouver and you have to go to Tofino. And then I think she had done a trip there and sent me a postcard. And I was like, gosh, someday we will get to Tofino. But anyway, all right, let's move into the heart of the conversation.
Okay.
Women Changing Cities, your new book. Love the title. So let's start with the why this book. Why now?
Yeah, it's sort of an evolution over time of a couple of things. So my husband, Chris, has been working in cycling diplomacy with the Dutch Cycling Embassy, which means he gets to travel quite a bit and see what's happening around the world. And we had The first two books, Building the Cycling City and Curbing Traffic, were very, very Dutch focused. The first on the Dutch history of cycling and what other cities are learning from it or how they're applying those lessons. And then the second book, Curbing Traffic, about the impact that cities with fewer cars have on us from a physical, mental, and social well-being level, but still very much rooted in this idea of how Dutch cities have formed and cycling has formed to benefit that. And at the same time, he's traveling and seeing all these amazing cities and things that are happening and the people that are making it happen. And then for me, I was working with an organization called Women Mobilize Women. They are an initiative funded by GIZ, which is funded in part by the German Development Bank. Mm-hmm. There's a whole tier that I don't know all the complicated German bureaucration for, right, but sure. So they are a German organization, but they work predominantly in the global south in terms of finding mentorship, networking, capacity building opportunities for women in the transport sector. And so working with them, I suddenly was opened up to this whole new world of women who are actively working to improve conditions for other women and ultimately for everyone in transportation, whether that's in walking, cycling, public space, public transportation, electrification, the whole sector in this under this umbrella. And so while Chris is seeing all these wonderful places and I'm meeting all these wonderful women, it was sort of this idea of, I think someone needs to tell these stories. We hear a lot about some of the women that are in the book. So Anne Hidalgo from Paris, Claudia Lopez, the former mayor of Bogota. They do have a fairly prominent status, but there are so many stories we don't know, while we do hear more often about men that are doing these amazing things. And so for me, it was to be able to meet these women, to tell their stories. And then for Chris, it was also to capture this moment in time of these transformations. And there was sort of this linking thread for all the women that we were starting to pin together, in that a lot of these transformations were happening quite quickly. Some were permanent, some were much more tactical urbanism style. But all in all, it was just, basically women getting shit done fast.
You love that. Yeah.
And so we wanted to understand why. Why was that happening? Was it something special about women? That might be what we all want to hear, is that, women are just capable of doing this very quickly. Yeah. But that was the question we wanted to answer is, why is Paris, Barcelona, Tirana, Manila, Sydney, why are they moving so quickly? And why is it that women in charge are helping them get along? And so that was really the thesis behind the book in the first place. Yeah.
So, and why did this feel like the right moment to publish this book about the women shaping our cities?
Well, I think we find ourselves in a moment where I think we're seeing things move quite quickly. We're seeing a lot of backlash as well happening around the world. So this is not centralized to the usual suspects that might come up when we think about where that backlash is happening, the US, also in the EU and in the UK. I often relate that to, we see that become more fervent, more like the backlash becomes stronger when things are moving in the right direction. And it was really important that we were able to share these stories to emphasize this is the positive that is coming out of this. And so while you might be hearing the negative, there's so much good. And also it's coming from women, and women need a better stature in our world, but also in the urban planning field. Yeah. And whether it's leadership or just people entering into the sector. And one of the stats that we have in the book, and I'm sure it's changed. I don't know if it's changed for the better or worse since then, but only 8% of the mayors of the 300 largest cities in the world are women. And, we make up 50% of the global population. Therefore, we should have better representation in our global leadership as well. And so this was in part to shine a light on these women, not that they're the only ones that are doing this, but also to provide that example for other women that might be feeling frustrated or feeling like, what is the hope? Where can we go from here? And to see those examples and say, okay, if I keep doing this, this might be where we can get to. And there are people that are paving the way for me.
And I want to pick up on the point you mentioned about backlash and, urban mobility, very personal People, it's a very emotive subject. People have very strong opinions depending on what their preferred mode of travel is. When it comes to backlash, do you think that the women leaders then in that position who are at the helm of this behavior change, do they face more backlash as their male counterparts? Are they easier targets just because they're women?
I don't think they're easier targets. I think, in general, once you're doing something that's deemed unpopular, whether you're a man or a woman, the target is the same. And you're absolutely right. The thing about transportation and urban planning is everyone is an expert because we all live and breathe it every day. And so we all have, like you said, very strong opinions, and we think that we know best, whether we've studied it or not. The difference is that the level of scrutiny and the level of backlash and the toxicity of it is harsher for women. I wish I could understand the psychology behind it, but it always goes beyond just the decisions themselves, and it becomes very personal in terms of the attacks against women. And so nearly all of the women that we spoke to for Women Changing Cities described having to have police escorts at various times because they were receiving really vitriolic, toxic messages from random people, anonymous people. We know that a couple of them have said, had said when we interviewed them that they might not continue in politics because of the impact it has on their families. And it's quite sad because men don't experience that in the same way. I think I recently heard that Anne Hidalgo, for example, was being scrutinized for wearing a Chanel dress to an event.
I have read that. Yes. I have read that.
When who knows how much the suits cost that her male counterparts are walking around with her are wearing, And these little things, I wish I could understand it better so we could move beyond it. And it's, the way a woman looks, the way she speaks, the way she dresses, or all become basically talking points to discredit what a woman is doing when really we should be focusing on the merit of what they're trying. I think what's good within that and what we kept hearing is that a lot of these women said, yes, it's hard. I don't like it. I've had to have people following me around. I felt unsafe at various times, but I know that I'm doing the job that I've been elected or selected for this position to do. And I will keep doing it, even if it means I'm not reelected or I don't get to hold this position anymore, because that's what's important. And so the backlash, of course, can be a deterrent for a lot of people. It can make the job a lot harder, but the common thread was that these women just knew they were on the right path and had to just keep doing it. Yeah.
So I know a few women who are in political leadership positions, and I've jokingly asked them, so would you, go for premiership or to the top job? And the recurring theme is no, because you get put under too much scrutiny. And exactly echoing what you've just said, and I agree with you. It is very sad.
Yeah,
that women have to then navigate that extra challenge about on top of everything that is required to exist as a woman in this world.
It's wild, and I mean, I know I've seen a few joking campaigns of, people sort of flipping the script a little bit and saying, well, he should smile more. The jokes against men should do all these things. And I think what's powerful is the people that are willing to put themselves in the crosshairs, so to speak. That's a terrible analogy, but to be those people to then say, okay, I know this is what I'm going to face, but I just need to do it. And I mean, kudos to all of the people, whether man or woman or otherwise, that sit in those positions and are willing to do it. But I do hope at one stage we can move past it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And speaking about common threads, but is there one story or one anecdote that moved you the most and, stayed with you even after you finished writing the book?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
I had so many wonderful conversations with so many women. The number of them where English is not their first language and listening to them apologize to me. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Yeah. I'm just happy you're sitting down with me.
Yeah.
But I think, the biggest one that I repeat quite often is when we were, for our very first group of interviews, we were in Barcelona to talk about the super blocks and the BC bus and all of the wonderful things that happened under the mayorship of Advocacy. And it was speaking with one of the mobility counselors, Janet Sands, where she was recounting the creation of the San Antonio Superblock. And of course, there was pushback, and there's been court injunctions since that have stopped superblocks from expanding, which is quite sad, but hopefully they can move past it and keep going eventually. But she said that she knew that she was on the right track when she received a letter from one of the constituents saying, "Thank you so much for creating this. My 80-year-old mother now comes down every day and has coffee with her friends to start her day."
Oh.
And that's a very big ritual for most Spanish people. To be able to give them that space. Yeah. And I think those are the stories that people need to be reminded of when they're thinking, you've taken away parking, or you've made it harder for me to drive here. Yeah. It's not about the people that have the most access. It's about the people where their access has become reduced because of age or ability or what have you, to be able to give that back. And to me, that's the most meaningful, because not only has she created this, and the whole team has created this wonderful space for this 80-year-old woman, but it's also becoming a space that'll get passed on. So the next group of 80-year-olds can enjoy that 10 years from now in the same way. Yeah. And that's a beautiful story. And as we are, definitely in Europe, becoming an older population, an aging society, I can't remember what the statistics are, but in the UK particularly, we're not far from where, 50% of the population is over the age of 50. Yeah. I'm very much conscious about these spaces that will suit, older living, and later living is becoming a buzzword now, and people are increasingly becoming aware of the small interventions that geared towards the older people. And I think is it Jill Penalosa who talks about 80. Yeah. So if a city works for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old, it will work for everybody. And I remember thinking, there's such common sense. Why don't we do that? But I think we'll get into that a bit more further along to our conversation. So you've written the book. You're doing the book tour. How do you hope the book shifts the way cities think about mobility? I really hope, that people read the stories and they can find some inspiration that is relevant to their context. I said, with the first 2 books, it was very Dutch focused. And so we hear all the time, we're not the Netherlands. That's really wonderful, but we can't be that. And so this book, part of the reason there are no Dutch cities in the book was to say, but look what's happening in Bogota or in Tirana or in Sydney or Manila or so on and so forth. Yeah. To say, it is happening. It might not look exactly the same as it does in Delft or Amsterdam or in Copenhagen or even in Paris, but there are lessons to be drawn from each of these and inspiration. And I hope that that's what people see in the stories. And then I hope that they also see the same takeaways that we did in terms of the leadership qualities to get there. And that's sort of how I don't want to give the whole book away.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yes, no spoilers. Go buy the book.
Yeah. But, one of the things that we sort of, to answer the initial thesis of why are women able to do this, was some key leadership qualities that they might at first seem a little more feminine, but they're really leadership qualities that can be held by anyone. And I think that, whether you're a leader yourself or someone thinking about who you would like to champion, really embracing these characteristics, whether it's in a man, woman, or anyone in between, to say, this is what we want. This is the kind of leadership we need, and we should celebrate it instead of going with the status quo, because that's not getting us anywhere fast at the moment.
Yeah, I always say if women led the world, we would be living in a very, very different place. And I think what I love about this book is there's an evidence base. It's not anecdotes. That you're providing evidence of, and cause and effect of this happened and this was the result. And it's down to let's say feminine leadership traits. So excellent. So let's move on to the global urban mobility today. What's working, what isn't. So when you look at global mobility systems today, where do you see the most meaningful progress, and where are we still getting stuck?
I think the cities that recognize the importance of social connectivity in mobility are the ones that are seeing greater success. It's not just about cycling. I know that I got started as a cycling advocate, and so I'm a big proponent for cycling cities, but even places that give high quality walking environments, and then link that with public transportation. And we can see that, not just in European cities, but in some North American cities, although I do think US is unfortunately lagging behind at the moment. Not the entire country, but a few cities in particular. Mm-hmm. But you see it happening in pockets. You see in Bogota, for example, like the investment in cycling that's been happening there at the same time as you have the Transmilenio, the bus rapid transit, and now the further expansion to include metro and light rail to get further out and increase accessibility for all the neighborhoods will in the long term have impact on prosperity for more people. Similarly, in Tirana, which is a city that is adapting post-communism, it's this idea of how do we create public space in a way that it invites this city to come and spend time together at the same time as improving mobility. So developing for cycling, developing for walking. Those are the elements that help people move faster and improve that quality of life. Yeah. And then the ones that unfortunately are doubling down on creating space for, widening highways or creating more room for parking. Those are the ones that unfortunately are getting stuck.
Oh, say it louder.
Literally getting stuck.
Yeah. I mean, I'm biased because I'm not a motorist for sure.
Yeah.
But yes, say it louder. And you have the evidence as well to back it. Yeah.
Well, and even so one of the chapters is focused on Delhi, and from there, their perspective it's with the organization Safety Pin that is much more focused on addressing the feelings or actual experience of violence, whether it's gender-based or otherwise. Starting out in Delhi, but then shifting now to much more global perspective. And it's great that there's this attention to that, and it's helped to address a lot of dark spots in Delhi and other Indian cities. But I had the opportunity to travel there in September of this year.
Oh, yes.
And there's a lot of, the challenge is that there's a lot of focus right now on expanding the metro, great. Yeah. But then at the same time, recognizing the value of what's happening on the street level. And so walking and cycling is still, there's still that gap there. Yeah. And they're getting stuck in their own traffic.
Getting stuck in their traffic. Oh gosh, Delhi. I am from Mumbai, so I don't have very...
I heard about the rivalry when I was there.
Yes, so again, my view is biased. I feel like amongst all the Indian metros, Mumbai does the best job in terms of urban mobility. And it's a peninsula, and but even so, despite all of that, it moves how many ever 20 million people a day. And I think I would agree with you. And also for women in Delhi, the safety is hyper critical. I recently visited Lahore in Pakistan, and the School of Architecture there, and a lot of girls there could only travel in their parents' cars or with drivers. Obviously, they're a certain status of society, but they were not allowed to travel on public transport. This is deemed unsafe.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? And how do we solve it? I know these are big questions.
Oh,
and you don't have the answers. but having traveled, and I consider myself well traveled, and the women experience is very different to the male experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's even, it doesn't have to be in a place that you think is very dangerous, but just like how you feel. And that's the whole purpose behind Safety Pin, is it's not just about the actual experiences, but the feelings of insecurity. And, I get asked this question, well, what can we do? And unfortunately, we still leave it upon women to solve it for themselves. We fail to recognize, exactly as you pointed out, there's trips that these women are not making because they don't feel safe, or someone has decided it's not safe for them to do that. We make routing choices based on where we'll feel more comfortable. The adage that we all walk around with our keys between our knuckles, just in case. I don't know how effective that would be. I haven't heard anyone tell me that it is actually effective, but I'm not going to stop doing it. Yeah. All of these little microaggressions against women as they move around a city.
Yeah.
This is why we need women assisting in making these decisions, whether they're in the top leadership or sitting at the table in the first place, is because we can say, well, no, you haven't addressed lighting, or you're making this network choice in terms of public transportation or cycling that leaves women in these dark spaces that they will never use. And therefore you've cut off that option for them. Yeah. And in order to create a network or a plan or a design that is more gender responsive, you need women involved in those conversations.
Yeah. I mean, now I've seen this campaign in London talking about women carriages on the underground. Women only carriages on the underground. And I'm thinking, wow, like, how have we got to this point there where in a city of London, women are increasingly feeling the need to have separate carriages. Like, I grew up in Mumbai, and that was normal. That was cultural. There's no way I would travel in the male compartment unless it was first class and unless, like, a friend was with me. Like, I wouldn't dare venture, even now, even though it's my home city. Yeah. But that thinking coming here, I find that a really interesting change in direction. That are we moving backwards?
I mean, this is the first I've heard of it happening here. I do. I think, I had these wonderful debates, like very good spirited debates about the women only carriages in Mexico City when we were there, and afterwards, and also when I was in Delhi, I did ride in the women only carriage as well. And you just like, the women I rode with when I was in Delhi, they were all there for a study visit. We're like, we just feel calm, right? Like nobody's worried about who's watching us. We're just relaxed. The men that we were traveling with actually sat they sat a little too close to the carriage. Okay. And they got told off, which was quite funny. Yeah. But the whole conversations I was having is like, well, this is the scenario when we haven't addressed, aftercare for women when things happen, or we haven't provided proactive solutions that don't just wait till an incident happens. And to hear that TfL is looking at this.
No, I don't think it's TfL. I think it's a public campaign.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, still.
It's on social media.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. But to hear that people are thinking about it, on one hand, it's a petition. I understand, you want to feel safe, you want to feel comfortable. Women have just as much of a right to use the tube as men. Yeah. It's not a step in the right direction because it actually takes the responsibility away from the people that should be stopping it from happening, from the men that shouldn't be doing it in the first place, and then puts the onus back. It's, again, putting the onus back on women to be responsible for their own safety. Well, we've provided you now with this car for yourself. So, go there to be safe. But, I mean, you're only in that women-only car for a short period of time, right? And so maybe it solves that problem while you're on the tube, but not when you're standing on the platform, although they usually have a section, so it does help. Or not when you're arriving to the station, or not when you get on the bus to get to where you're going, or not when you're walking on the footpath. We need to be looking at the larger picture, and it's such a big challenge. But I think the more that while we create these temporary feelings of security, we ignore the bigger problem, and then the problem just gets worse.
No, that's so interesting. So multimodal travel is central to your work. For those listening, how would you describe what multimodal travel is?
It seems so basic, and
yes.
I know.
You're the expert.
Because I live and breathe this every day. Multimodal travel is really just making travel possible with a combination of modes. So it's understanding that not one mode can't necessarily solve every single trip. And so if we look at it from the cycling perspective, it's often very difficult to imagine cycling 10 kilometers. And so for multimodality to work, it's, okay, I'm going to cycle from my home to the tube station. I'm going to park my bike, hopefully in a secure space. Yes. Take the tube to maybe almost where I need to get to, and then walk the rest of the way. And so that multimodal trip makes that 10-kilometer journey a lot more realistic for a lot more people. And unfortunately, because of the attraction of the car almost a century ago, or more than a century ago now, most of the way that we look at transportation is monomodal. We only think about, how do I get there by car as efficiently as possible? And not recognizing that at some point we're going to have to walk, or at some point we might not be able to drive anymore. It's quite normal, actually, that we don't drive until we're 16, 17, depending on when you can get your license. And then we know that we are aging out of the ability to drive safely. So we will eventually become too old to operate a car safely. So what do we say to those groups of if your health maintains on a fairly straight line throughout your entire lifetime, suddenly you're not able to drive when you're young and you're old. So, too bad you're not part of the system anymore. So multimodality helps to cities that focus on that and make walking easier, make cycling easier, make public transportation more accessible, benefit all of those, benefit our young people and our older people, but then also benefit everyone in between that doesn't fit into a car-based system.
Excellent. And so we've discussed some of the challenges, and now let's talk about what good looks like. So if you could describe the experience of good urban development from a woman's perspective, exactly as you just described, walking through the city, what would that look and feel like? And I guess, what does a city with excellent mobility for anybody feel like, both emotionally, physically, and socially?
In terms of feeling, it's not feeling like you're hindered in any way. So from a woman's perspective, I mean, let's take it from my perspective as my kids are grown up now, but when they were much younger, it's knowing that when I leave the house holding their hand or pushing them in a stroller, that I'm not going to have to carry that stroller upstairs or up and down a curb to get to a metro station or get to the shop that I'm going to. It's knowing I will pass people along the way who will smile at me and make me feel comfortable and who I can smile back to. I'm not expecting everyone to be super jovial while they're on their way to work.
Wanting people to smile back at you.
To be fair, the Dutch are quite vocal in saying good morning and good afternoon as well. So. But just, feeling that at least someone's looking out for you, those eyes on the street, as Jane Jacobs referred to it.
Street. Yes.
That's, I think, part of what a good feeling is moving through space. Knowing that you have the choices for how you can move. If you have to drive, that it's there. But if you can't or you don't want to, that there are other choices that make it easy, that you don't feel closed in. And so thinking about the provision of lighting, having trees that make it comfortable without making it feel oppressive, a good mix of soft and hard, and just overall feeling like you don't have to always be on alert, that you can have those moments of flow where you're just moving through a space regardless of your mode, and you just can let go for a little bit. You don't have to be always on alert. And there's not a lot. I mean, there are some places where I feel that. Vancouver, I did feel that almost all the time.
Yes.
I do feel that most of the time traveling through Dutch cities as well. And there's been a few others, Belgian cities as well, and other places in the world. But it's just being able to turn off once in a while and have just like, I know I'm going to be okay. I'm going to just move the way I want to move, and I can just go with the flow as opposed to being on alert and high stress all the time.
Yeah, that just sounds so utopian right now.
I know.
I mean, as a Londoner, I love London. I would still argue it's one of the best cities in the world, with one of the most efficient transport networks, extensive transport networks. I mean, it has its pros and cons, but let's face it, we're moving fairly quickly wherever and get to where we need to be. Generally on time, but it's not without its stresses, like rush hour. Even me trying to get to anywhere in London at 9 a.m. From my tube station, like sometimes I miss 3 or 4 trains before I can get onto the train. It's just based on where I am physically on that tube line.
But that's a sign of a system that's working, right? Because people want to use it. It means that there's things that...
Let's go with that.
There's obviously improvements in terms of capacity and efficiency that needs to be made. But it's, you don't have the opposite effect where the train is basically empty because nobody wants to use it.
That is very rare. Very rare. I mean, they mean time of the day. Again, it's timing. Timing dependent, but then like we were talking about, I've tried to cycle in London and it's just not worked out. It's too stressful, and I don't think I could be relaxed or unhindered as you just described the utopia that you just described. I don't think I could get while cycling, but I I really hope we do get to play. Things
Yeah.
are happening. They are happening. Obviously, we live in a densely populated city. However, I visited Tokyo earlier this year.
Mhm.
That's a city of 22 billion or whatever.
It's one of the biggest.
One of the biggest
Yeah.
densely populated cities in the world. But the transport network and the infrastructure was excellent.
Yeah.
Absolutely excellent. So I don't get the argument like more people means more problems. I
Yeah.
don't know, how is Tokyo getting it so right?
I haven't myself had the opportunity to visit Japan yet, and
Yeah.
it's high on my list
Yeah,
because I've
yeah.
spoken to so many people just this year alone, also including my husband,
Yeah.
who, they're like, it's amazing. You need to go. It's
Yeah.
so awesome.
Yeah.
Whether it's Tokyo or
Yeah.
Osaka or who cares.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I need to experience it for myself.
Yes.
But yeah, I wish I understood. Maybe it's a cultural thing, but it is, I think what Japan shows, and I'm about to go to China, and I've also heard similar things about Chinese cities, is that you can have these mega cities and organize them in a way that, maybe, I don't know if there's other hierarchical things happening there, but
Yeah.
you give those choices to people and it functions and it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's, in the sort of Western mindset, we're like, well, we can't learn anything from the East, but I think there's a lot that we can learn
Yeah.
from these cities that have, their histories are longer than a lot of European and well, definitely North American cities, but they've seemed to have figured things out even as they've evolved.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of what I do is trying to reinforce this cross-cultural learning.
Definitely.
I think we all need to learn from each other.
Definitely. I have to say, agree that it is cultural. What we experience in Japan is definitely culture. There is a social culture where people do seem to take care of each other and follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're following the rules, like, no talking loudly on the train, no taking phone calls, no listening to loud music. No eating and drinking, and the reserved seats, nobody sits on them, even if the train is full, and the seat isn't occupied by the priority person, nobody will sit on it. Whereas that's not the case in London. In fact, even if someone gets on the tube with crutches, they would have to ask the person to vacate the seat, because most people on the London Underground are just head down on their mobile phones and not conscious about what's happening around them. So I think it is cultural.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely from my experience and my limited experience traveling in Japan, it seems to be culture. It's a society that cares for its people as opposed to more individualistic society, which we find in Western Europe. I think for me, that's been my experience.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. It sort of ties back to your question of like, what does a place look like that is comfortable for women? And it is this idea of looking out for others. It's about not being so individualistic.
Yes.
Because again, this can be a characteristic that can be held by any gender, but women do tend to have to be the ones that are the carers, that the ones that have to look out for their own family or friends as they're moving around. And so it's not built into everybody. I'm not saying every woman moves around the world this way.
Yes.
But you do become more hyper aware of, when I'm on a train, I remember being pregnant and people not getting out of the bus seats for me.
Yeah.
And when I see someone, especially when you're on the tube and you see the baby on board, which I think is maybe unnecessary, but somewhat brilliant, especially if you're not showing yet.
Yes. Yes.
I think those kinds of things help to say, okay, I'm going to get up. You need my seat.
Yeah.
And, I was there. I did that. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Take my seat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's, again, you have to have this sort of mindset of understanding that everyone's coming at their mobility from a different level of accessibility or health. And we all need to be a little more understanding. And so, a city that works well is one that takes that into account. Yeah.
Melissa, if you could redesign one everyday journey, what elements would you change to make it safer, calmer, and more intuitive?
I could do it.
Yeah.
I would add a lot more green. That's
okay.
my thing now.
Yeah. Add more green, sure.
I think, just in general, softening spaces. I feel most uncomfortable in spaces that are really, really hard, whether it's just gray, lots of concrete or asphalt or what have you, stone, doesn't matter. That softening, I find, just makes a space more comfortable to be in. I would want there to be seating somewhere.
Yep.
And then I would want there to be play as well.
Yeah.
The number of times I can remember moving around with my kids when they were younger and just being like, it would be nice if I could just sit and they could play. And whether it's jumping on stones, it doesn't have to be a big play structure, but those kinds of things are how I would immediately start changing the city. Just, you know, stepping stones to jump on, a place to sit, shade from a tree. And then, you know, the more structural elements, wider sidewalks, good separated cycling infrastructure or slowing traffic, you know, give me a brush and I'll change everything.
Yeah.
I'll solve all the problems. It's a very frequent joke in our household. I know how to fix this. Just let me do it. But yeah, I think it's my ideal is a place where, you know, if there are cars, they're moving super slow. And then you have people of all ages on different types of cycles with next to wide footpaths where people are walking hand in hand and having conversations without feeling like they need to be on alert all the time. Yeah.
No, that is definitely something I can echo with, and the sense of play as well. And, you know, not just for children, for adults as well. And I know there are definitely people in London and the UK who are increasingly talking about play and bringing back play, bringing back joy, bringing back wonder back into our city. So it's happening. It is happening. So we've talked about Tokyo in passing, but, you know, through your research and the work you've been doing so far, so which global examples of cities today offer the strongest lessons for the built environment sector, you know, developers, planners, policymakers?
I mean, the obvious, from an urban planning and resiliency, the obvious answer is Paris. And Hidalgo and her mayorship has done a lot in a short amount of time to, you know, just starting with the Paris plage and reclaiming that motorway along the Seine as just, that was the first transformation of many. But this reprioritization of that public space back to Parisians is an excellent example of how you can regreen in, you know, a little over a 10-year span, how you can calm traffic in a way that creates that behavior change shift to more walking and cycling in a place that had a reputation as a terribly car congested city. And, you know, I traveled there for the first time in 2002, just I wasn't even graduated from university, you know, Paris was this wonderful city that everyone wants to visit when you're growing up learning.
Yes,
exactly. To what it is now is, night and day. And so I think from an urban planning perspective, they can't necessarily transform in terms of developing more housing because it is a very densely populated city, but it provides this excellent example of that transformation from a hardscape, from a place that had this reputation of never being able to change to something that was more human scale to now being that city. So I think they're an excellent example and very tangible in terms of improving air quality, giving green space back to Parisians and shifting that travel behavior. Yeah. And then, you know, a city maybe that's working towards that. Yeah, I think there's still so much of the world I haven't seen yet. And I don't want to, I hate being stuck in this sort of like North America bubble or Western bubble, but that's unfortunately my experience for the most part. Yeah. But I do see like, you know, Montreal in Canada is another one of those cities that they're changing as much as they can. Yeah. If you grow up in Canada, you know, Quebec has this reputation of being like a province that can sometimes seem a little bit stuck. They're in the past kind of thing. And we often joke that when we go there, it feels like, you know, we're kind of going back to the 80s. It could be because I'm going to see my family and they're all older and listening to music from the 80s and that's just making me think that. Who knows? Yeah. But they're also, they're embracing the history that they have in that city while also looking at how they can adapt. So maintaining the triplex walk-ups and, you know, these beautiful treed streets, but then also looking at, okay, how do we then transform the newer spaces to make room for people that need to stay in the city. If you're unfamiliar with Montreal, it is, you do have sort of the denser city center where you have more high rises, but in the neighborhoods, bedroom communities, it's all 2 and 3 story walk-ups. It's very cozy, but it doesn't necessarily allow for a lot of growth. Montreal is another one of those cities constrained by geography. And so they're now having to come up with more creative ways of addressing that and you know, having new development done in a responsible way that you aren't densifying for the sake of it, but still providing better housing for people. Which you see is happening slowly.
Yeah.
In the Quebec pace of doing
Yeah,
things.
I have heard so many good things about Paris, and Montreal I've also visited in winter, believe it or not. And I have this very story I share a lot. So we got to Montreal, and then it was Christmas Eve, and then we wanted to get something for Christmas Day and walk the streets, and there was nobody on the street. No one, not a single human being on the street. And I'm thinking, where's everyone? Yes, we're tourists, we're visitors. Where are the locals? And I don't know how we ended up, but we ended up, going somewhere underground. And then suddenly, that's where everyone was. There's this whole underground city happening at level -1, where it's warm. And that's where the life is. And I was just like, wow. At street level, it looks deserted. And there's a whole other secondary layer of life taking place underground. It's just wild.
Well, and what's interesting about that is, you have that in a few Canadian cities. So Toronto has a similar sort of path system. Yeah. Winnipeg a little bit. Vancouver doesn't need to. It doesn't get that cold there. Yeah. Well, it used to anyway. Yeah. But in Montreal, it's like, yes, it's commercial life and there's a lot of retail down there, but it was specifically built to address the fact that Montreal experiences extremely cold winters.
Yes.
I would think my only criticism is that you do see cities like Edmonton in Canada, also another very cold city, embracing a winter city strategy to try to draw people outside, because we can't stop being social just because it's cold out. Yeah. And with all of the wonderful open streets programs they've been doing in the summer in Montreal, it would be great to see that become a winter strategy as well. Not everyone's going to go out in -40, nor should they.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But but still to create those inviting, so that it's not just all retail driven warmth underground, but it is a beautiful, way of creating public space in a city that is really cold in the winter.
And the winter city strategy element is interesting. So we have Canary Wharf here in London, Canadian developers. And you go to Canary Wharf and you think you're in North America. It doesn't feel like London or Europe. And then when I realized Canary Wharf has this whole underground retail element to it, and I was like, oh, then I put two and two together. All right, so the Canadians just do it everywhere.
In Calgary, they did it I think it's one level up, and they connected a bunch of buildings with a bunch of bridges. Same idea.
And I was recently out in Canary Wharf. I played this virtual game called Pokemon Go, and it was cold, and then that underground environment provided us that warmth where we could play a little bit more unfiltered. But anyway, moving on to delivery, and mobility is often framed as infrastructure, as it should be. But as we've already discussed, it's behavior and human behavior and our preferences. So what's the biggest systems gap keeping cities from delivering people first mobility?
There's probably a myriad different answers to this question, but I think from my perspective, it's often this, because there's such a heavy focus on the hard infrastructure, that's where budgets go. Is how do we realize new maintenance on a street, building out that cycling infrastructure, creating the bus rapid transit networks. All of the money goes into these higher price tag sort of focuses, that we forget to equally fund the social side of things, the software as it's referred to, which I hate calling it soft because it's the hardest thing that we have to do. But having that engagement with communities to help them understand what is being proposed, getting their feedback to help inform what we do. There's often minimal budget for that engagement side of things, the communications element. And I think that's why we see the level of backlash that we do is for the projects where we don't recognize we need to have uncomfortable conversations with people to understand what their challenges are, help them understand where we're coming from so we can move forward in a more cohesive way. And without that, that's when you get the misunderstanding, misinformation. You leave it to somebody else to fill that void. And oftentimes it's people with a different interest in mind that will fill that void if you don't take care of it. So cities, organizations, towns, governments, whatever, they need to recognize the value of good engagement and communications, and they need to put money towards it to help inform and help ensure that all of the hard work that happens for the infrastructure, the very talented people that need to design and build that, aren't thwarted because we didn't take time to talk to people, to move that conversation beyond, I don't understand it, therefore I don't like it, to, okay, I see where you're coming from. This is how I might like to see it. I don't necessarily like this, but this, the long run, the value of what you're going to create will help me in my daily life.
Yeah. And I hear this a lot across this podcast, but very much about the value of that community engagement element and putting aside the budget and the time, because these things take time.
They do.
As well. And we often hear the word viability, definitely in the UK. It's topic number one in development. So how do we make people-centered mobility feel genuinely viable economically, socially, and politically?
That's a really big question.
We're here for the big questions.
Yeah. No, but I think I say big because it's never just one solution, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I think for politicians, for them to understand that it's viable, and also for economically interested parties, is to make that tie between human-centric design and the larger benefit to society. So we'll oftentimes, again, I'll come back to cycling. If you're proposing a cycle lane that's going to take away parking, the very first argument will be you're taking away the economic viability of my business if you do that.
Yes.
However, if we communicate, okay, yes, we're going to have to reallocate this parking to somewhere else, but what we're doing is creating more space for people to walk and cycle to your business, which over time will have a larger impact on your bottom line, will benefit you. These are customers that are moving slower. Yeah. They'll see that you're having a sale or something like that. And they will stop and they will spend money more over time than a one person in a vehicle out front of your shop. Yeah. That also needs to be communicated to politicians to better understand. Yes. But then for them also understanding the economic benefit to more people being able to be employed or attend education or all of these things that over time will have a net positive on societal costs on your GDP. I don't know the numbers off by heart. That's not my job. But we do know that people driving in a car is always a net negative on our society based on the impact on our roads, the cost of maintenance for those, on, just gas and emissions and all of the costs there, versus when we have someone walking and cycling, they're lower impact on our infrastructure. So it's less maintenance over time. They're also healthier, and so they take less sick days. So businesses benefit, so from an economic perspective, you have all these wonderful benefits, not to mention when we move actively, we feel better. And so that has a lower strain on our mental health institutions and, so on and so forth. Yeah. And these are the messages that we need to be communicating and putting that into for the decision makers. And although I tend to focus not too much on facts and figures and more on stories. Yes. They need those facts and figures to better understand the positive impacts. Yeah. And then for the community, it is sharing the stories more. Yeah. That's why I do what I do, is to try to share the impact that good walking, good cycling, and public transportation has on me, or had on me, but also the impact it's having on those people in our society that don't already enjoy the most. The disabled community. How wonderful is their life if they get to move around comfortably, whether they have visual impairment, neurodiversity, physical impairment, because we've given that to them. We've given them that right to exist. We're, like, as you said, we're aging fast as a population. And the last thing we want is for who are now my parents, or for my children's grandparents, to be stuck inside and completely isolated, and we lose that intergenerational knowledge. Yes, absolutely. And it's emphasizing that benefit, I think, is what we need. And I know that sounds all nice and rosy, and not everyone wants to listen to everybody, but that's really what we need to make this much more viable, is for the decision makers, the designers, the economists to understand the economic value, the health implications, positive and negative, but then us as a society. This is about making our lives better. And whether you consider yourself a conservative or progressive, wherever you sit on the political spectrum, that's what we want. We want to be able to enjoy the life that we're building. No, absolutely. And when you've said it out so eloquently, it makes it sound so simple. I know. And then I'm always like having these wonderful conversations with people, and we always have a suggestion or a roadmap to solve it. And I'm just wondering, why aren't we doing it? We have the capability as a human race.
we have the ingenuity, we have the knowledge, we have the capability. And I guess that's my next question. What are the blockers?
Well, a big one is social media.
Oh, wow. Tell me more. More.
I think we've, on the one hand, social media is great because it keeps us connected. It's how I've been able to build the career that I have, is using the tools that are available.
Yes.
But we are becoming more and more separated in terms of the camps that we find ourselves in based on the information we receive.
Yeah.
And I think it's just fueling this disparity where if you don't agree with something, obviously you're just reinforced by the people that you follow, the people that you connect with, and you suddenly think this is a big problem and it's a conspiracy to make your life more uncomfortable. Yeah. And then it's leading to this disconnect where we can't necessarily have a level playing ground to start at. Like I said, I use the tool to help share the stories I do, but I do know that a lot of times I'm just reaching the bubble, so to speak.
You're the people who agree with you.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I think it's, it is, unfortunately, from a leadership perspective, a lot of people staying in leadership a lot longer than they probably should, to hold on to that power, that infamy, that is just in terms of wanting to stay in a position of power, not doing the things that need to be done and not having those uncomfortable conversations because it means that they might not get reelected or they might not be able to hold on to that board seat or whatever. And we've put so much, I think it's always been there, but there's so much emphasis on this stature of being a leader that people don't always recognize when they're not suited to be that leader anymore. And, bringing it back full circle to women changing cities, we've seen that with Anne Hidalgo knowing it's my time to step down. I've had enough. Yes. Same with Valerie Plante in Montreal. Yeah. The other leaders that are still in their positions, understanding if they're not reelected, that's okay. Yeah. I'm here to, like I said, to do the job that I've been elected to do.
Sydney Mayor has been in her role for
really long time.
And they have a city architect who's also a woman. I met her recently. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's sort of not the exception to the rule because she is still ruffling a lot of feathers. Yeah. But she's still getting reelected. Yeah. But she actively made a choice she was sitting both at the city level and the state level in terms of government. And because her opposition wanted her out, they changed the rules that you can't do that anymore. And so she had to pick, stay in the state or stay at the city. Yeah. And the most logical was the state is more prestigious, right? That's the higher level of government. And she decided, no, I will stay at the city. Yeah. And so she focused her energy where she wanted to have that impact, the reason she got into politics. And it seems to be working out for her. Yeah. But what's been really good is that she's recognized when she needs to bring the right talent in to help move the city along in the right direction. Yeah. So a lot of the people that we've talked about in the book are relatively new in those positions. Right. But Mayor Clovermore is one that has been around for a long time. Yeah. She's a bit of a shit disturber online too. I'm happy with her being in that position.
No, excellent. So let's talk about the future. Let's do some future gazing. So what's your vision of the future place? I know you have outlined it, but what do you think the next chapter of urbanism needs to look like?
The cities that are recognizing where we need to go are the ones that are understanding that how we have been moving in cities since the Industrial Revolution is not resilient. Our cities can't survive if we keep following that same path of better efficiency for more vehicles and only focusing on that, because the climate is changing whether people agree with it or not. And it's the cities that recognize this and are building that resiliency in, understanding the need for regreening because our cities are getting too hot and too wet, and that's the future of cities. So this idea of building that resiliency in, and that resiliency is not just about regreening or creating these sponges, but it's also about the resiliency of transport. And I think COVID really brought that to the fore for a lot of cities. Yeah. People could no longer more people were not traveling on public transportation because of the fear of their own security. And that was fine. That's, everyone makes their personal choices, but we also know that they couldn't all suddenly get into motor vehicles and drive around. And so that's why we saw this massive quick response to creating pop-up bike lanes and wider sidewalks, because people needed to have that public space. And for cities to be resilient for the future, that needs to be part of the strategy.
Yeah.
Not because of some utopia where I want everyone to be walking and cycling everywhere, but because we will continue to experience these extremes, whether it's another pandemic, whether it's environmental extremes like heavy rainfall, high seasons of drought, or what have you. We need our cities to be more responsive to a future that's inevitable.
Yes, no, that's true. And so when you look at the next decade of mobility, what shifts do you think will genuinely change how people move, you know, beyond the hype of, say, an electric bike? Or
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say, I think the electrification of micromobility is opening up the accessibility to a lot more people.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you feel about it. Yeah. Some people, you know, consider it cheating. Others think people are moving too quickly.
Cheating! Oh, wow. Oh, that's the first one. Because you're not getting exercise. You're not burning calories. Yeah.
I mean, you are, to be fair. But I do think that as more and more of these micromobility tools come about that are attractive and draw people out of private automobiles to this kind of mobility, or providing for more shared mobility options, even if it's, you know, share cars or ride hailing. Yeah. That to me is the future, because our space in our cities is finite. Yeah. And this, you know, the more we can integrate and have that multimodality. Yes. I think that's, for me, that's the vision of the future for a lot of cities. Yeah.
That brings us to the end of our formal conversation. Okay. And now we move into our fun little neighborhood quiz, and it's called Know Your Neighborhood. And your choice of neighborhood is Hof van Delft in the Netherlands. So it's a fun little quiz. I will state 3 facts, and all you have to do is tell me whether you think they're true or false. Okay. And for a little extra fun, tell me why you might think it's a true or false. And these facts are sourced from the internet and not cross-verified for accuracy. Okay. But whatever the answer on my notes stand. So are we ready?
Sure.
Cool. All right. So fact number 1, Hof van Delft was one of the first neighborhoods in Delft to pilot shared streets where pedestrians, cyclists, and cars negotiate space together.
I want to say false because I think it's a different neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Only because so I live on a canal. Yeah. Lucky me.
Yes.
And on the other side of the canal is a different neighborhood, and that's the neighborhood where the first Woner, so Living Street was.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. Well, on my notes, it's true.
Okay.
And it's the concept of Woner or Living Street was pioneered during the 1960s and 70s by scholars such as Nick de Boer and Justval. Upon digging, it sounds like the innovation emerged from residents' frustrations with cars driving too fast through the narrow residential streets, prompting them to take action by tearing up pavement and installing obstructions like planters to slow traffic. And the city's response evolved from this initial intolerance to this grassroots activism to formal adoption of the Wonerf model. But this we were talking about back in 1976. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, no wonder the Netherlands is paving the way. Yeah. Literally paving the way.
Literally, yeah.
Very, very cool. Fact number 2, the neighborhood's green upgrades include biodiversity corridors designed specifically to help hedgehogs commute safely.
I'm going to say that one's false.
Okay. All right. Again, on my notes, it's true.
Really? That's amazing. I haven't seen any hedgehogs yet.
Like I said, I don't know. We'll check this is what the internet is saying about your neighborhood. So these the green upgrades include biodiversity corridors designed to help hedgehogs commute safely, which are essentially small designated passages known as hedgehog highways. They're typically 13 by 13 centimeter holes in garden fences or walls that allow hedgehogs to move safely between gardens and green spaces, avoiding roads and other hazards. And it goes on to say that research has shown that these highways can significantly improve hedgehog movement and sightings, with studies reporting a 39% increase in sightings after their installation. But this could be general hedgehog highway improvements. To look for these now. This
was an interesting fact.
Yeah. So for me, that's why I kept it. I was like, it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun. All right, let's go for fact number 3. Hof van Delft became a minor TikTok sensation after Dutch teens filmed themselves racing e-bikes through its leafy streets.
I mean, I feel like I said false for the first two, so now I need to say true for the last one.
I mean, yeah, go with your gut.
Go with my gut.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think it's true.
That one is actually false.
Okay.
So, but I'll give you the first one because
Okay.
you could have been right about the Vooners and
Yeah.
so 1 out of 3. But apparently, so if the TikTok fame hasn't happened yet, it's not far off from it because it's a place where influencers go gaga. So it might become a TikTok sensation.
Oh, there you go.
TikTok sensation soon. That's cool. 1 out of 3. Well,
Yeah.
that means that our time has sadly come to an end on this podcast, but I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
talk more, and I'm definitely going to follow your book tour and all the wonderful things that you're doing. I think New York Times called you the women. What did they call
Women
you?
changing the world for cycling or something.
Yeah,
like that.
very cool. Actually, a lot of pressure. There will come with a lot of
Yeah.
pressure as well. But yes, all that to say is thank you for making the time on your book tour. Thank you for talking place with me. I wish you every success with the book and all the work that you do. And yes, follow Melissa on social media. Her Instagram is very cute. And yeah, hopefully we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, Tanisha. It was really fun.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Melissa. We'll talk soon.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to join the conversation on social media with the hashtag #TalkingPlace. I would also love for you to leave our podcast a review and subscribe to all our podcasts and YouTube channels so you don't miss an episode. There's so much more to explore when it comes to creating good places, and I'm excited to do a deep dive into other topics with you in our next episode. I'm Tanisha Raffiuddin, and it's been my pleasure to be your podcast host. Thank you for listening. See you again next time, where we'll continue talking place. Talk soon.